I can't let him suffer for what I did. I'm going to the police." The words fell heavy in the quiet workshop. One brother stood frozen, torn between fear and love, watching the other walk away toward a truth that could destroy them both. From the case file stories, where kindness and karma can rewrite an entire destiny. Here, every moment reveals a deeper truth about prejudice, racism, kindness, betrayal, forgiveness, and redemption, where justice, mercy, and love collide. Give it a try and watch from our playlist to witness how kindness and karma can rewrite an entire destiny. As this story begins, stay to the end, take a moment, breathe, and let it speak to your heart. No matter how dark the path is, light always finds its way back. Every story inspires and stays with you. Sometimes the hardest kind of love is the one that demands the truth, even when that truth breaks everything apart. It was on Monday evening. The wind howled through the narrow streets of Ashwood, a small town tucked deep in Georgia. At the corner of Maple and 3rd sat Henderson's Market, an old convenience store that stayed open late for night shift workers and restless teenagers. Inside, the cashier, Mr. Lewis Grant, an elderly man with kind eyes, was counting the register. His radio hummed softly in the background, playing an old country tune. He looked up when the bell above the door jingled one last time. A young man stepped in, hoodie pulled up, hands deep in his pockets. Rain dripped from his sleeves as he moved quietly through the aisles. Mr. Grant straightened up, forcing a smile. "Evening, son. You caught us just before closing." The boy didn't reply. He stood still, breathing heavily. Then came the words that changed everything. "Open the register." Mr. Grant froze. His voice was trembling. "Please don't do this." "I said open it," the boy shouted, and the crack of a gun sounded and echoed through the small store. Outside, lightning flashed across the wet pavement as the boy ran out, disappearing into the darkness. The cash drawer lay open, bills scattered across the floor, and Mr. Grant clutched his shoulder, blood seeping through his fingers. Minutes later, red and blue lights washed over the scene. The air was thick with sirens and whispers. And that moment broke the peace of Ashwood. Detective Jonathan Blake arrived, raincoat drenched, eyes sharp. "Who saw him?" he demanded as officers taped off the area. Two witnesses stood nearby, shivering beneath umbrellas. "We saw someone running," one woman said. "Looked like Michael Turner. You know the Turner boy. That same hoodie. I'd swear on it." Michael Turner, a 17-year young boy, very quiet and stays out of trouble, living with his mother and younger brother on the edge of town. By midnight, patrol cars pulled up to the Turner home. Flashlights cut through the darkness as two police officers knocked on the door. Michael opened it, eyes wide, still in the same gray hoodie. "What's going on?" he asked, voice shaking. "Michael Turner," an officer said firmly, "you're under arrest for armed robbery and aggravated assault." His mother screamed. His little brother Kevin appeared in the hallway, frozen. Michael didn't fight. He didn't speak. As they led him away in handcuffs, Kevin's voice broke through the storm. "Michael, tell them you didn't do it." Michael turned once, meeting his brother's terrified eyes. Rain streamed down his face like tears. But he said nothing, and that silence would haunt the next 10 years of his life. Join me till the end of this story, and you'll understand and see how a brother's sacrifice, born from love, would become both his greatest pain and his ultimate redemption. That midnight, the rain had stopped by the time Michael Turner was brought into the Ashwood Police Department. The night air smelled of wet asphalt and metal. Inside, the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, pale and unkind. Michael sat in the cold interrogation room, his hands trembling in the cuffs. He hadn't slept. He hadn't spoken. The gray hoodie still clung to him, damp and heavy. The door opened. Detective Jonathan Blake stepped in, holding a thin file and a paper with a cup of coffee. He placed both on the table, his eyes fixed on the boy sitting before him. "You've had a long night, Michael," the detective said quietly, taking a seat. "Let's make this easy, huh? Tell me what happened." Michael didn't respond. His eyes were fixed on the corner of the table. The detective sighed and opened the file. "Two witnesses saw you leaving Henderson's Market. You were wearing that same hoodie. The cashier identified you before he passed out. He said the robber sounded young and was scared. Michael swallowed hard. Is Mr. Grant alive? Barely, the detective said. He's in surgery. We're hoping he makes it. You know, if you tell us the truth, the court might show mercy. But if you lie, Michael's lips trembled. I didn't shoot him. Then tell me who did. The detective's voice was firm this time, echoing off the cold walls. Michael, you're 17. You have your whole life ahead of you. But this will follow you forever if you don't start talking. Michael closed his eyes, his chest rising and falling with the weight of a secret too heavy for a boy his age. Images flashed in his mind. Kevin's terrified face, the trembling hands holding the gun, the sound of that single shot. He remembered pulling Kevin into their backyard shed after it happened, whispering, "No one can know. You have to promise me, Kev." Kevin had cried, saying, "I didn't mean to. He scared me, Mike. I didn't mean to pull the trigger." Now here he was, sitting under bright lights, carrying a burden that wasn't his. Detective Jonathan Blake leaned forward, lowering his voice. "You were seen running. We found your fingerprints on the counter. The cash drawer was open. Do you want to tell me why? Or should I let the jury decide?" Michael looked up slowly, his eyes filled with tears. "You wouldn't understand. Try me." Michael hesitated, then whispered, "He's all I've got." The detective frowned. "Who?" Michael's voice cracked. "My brother." The detective sat back, studying him. "Kevin Turner? What does he have to do with this?" Michael shook his head quickly. "Nothing. He's a good kid. He didn't do anything." The detective's tone softened. "Then help him by helping yourself." Michael stared at the mirrored wall, seeing his own reflection, a boy caught between love and justice. The truth burned inside him, but love was louder. Finally, he whispered, almost too softly to hear, "It was me." The detective blinked. "What did you say?" Michael lifted his eyes, tears running down his cheek. "It was me. I robbed the store. I'm the one you're looking for." The room fell silent. The detective clicked his pen and began writing. The scratching sound on paper felt like a nail sealing Michael's fate. When the door opened again, 2 officers came in to take him away. As they led him down the hall, Detective Jonathan Blake stood by the doorway, his expression unreadable. Outside the room, Michael saw his mother waiting, her eyes swollen, her hands shaking. Beside her, Kevin stood pale and broken, whispering through tears, "No, Mike, no." Michael managed a small, tired smile. "It's okay, Kev," he said softly. "Just be better than me." And with that, he was gone, led down the corridor, the sound of his footsteps fading into silence. That night, Ashwood slept under the illusion of justice served. But the real crime was still hidden, buried beneath a brother's love and a confession that would cost a decade of his life. 10 years passed. The world outside had changed, but Ashwood still looked the same. The cracked sidewalks, the small-town diner on Main Street, the same courthouse with its white pillars standing like silent witnesses of time. Michael Turner walked through those streets again, his steps slow, his eyes scanning a town that once whispered his name like a curse. He carried nothing but a small duffel bag and the weight of 10 lost years. The morning sun fell on his face, warm but strange. He had dreamed of this moment in prison, the feeling of open air, the sound of children laughing, the smell of freedom. But now that it was here, it didn't feel like freedom. It felt like starting over on the edge of a broken dream. He found a small job at Miller's auto shop, where he fixed cars for minimum wage. The grease on his hands, the sound of engines, the rhythm of work, it gave him something to hold on to. He didn't talk much. He kept his head down. People still looked at him like the shadow of a story they once believed. At night, he went back to a tiny rented room above a barber shop. No pictures, no TV, just a bed, a Bible, and silence. Every now and then, he'd glance at the old photograph tucked into his wallet. Him and Kevin, smiling in front of their mother's house. Before everything changed, he wondered if Kevin ever thought of him, if he ever forgave himself. One gray afternoon, as the sun dipped low and the town began to quiet, Michael was closing up the garage when he heard a voice behind him. "Mike!" The wrench slipped from his hand, clattering to the floor. He turned slowly. Standing a few feet away was Kevin. Very older now, 25 years old, wearing a worn denim jacket and a face carved by guilt. His eyes were sunken, his hair unkempt. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in years. Michael froze. Kev. Kevin's voice cracked. You look older. Michael wiped his hands on a rag, his face unreadable. That's what 10 years does. Kevin's eyes filled with tears. I came to find you. I couldn't live with it anymore. Michael said nothing. The silence stretched, thick with everything they'd never said. Kevin stepped closer, shaking. I ruined your life, Mike. You went to prison for something I did. I told myself I'd make it right one day, but every time I tried, I got scared. I kept hearing your voice in my head, the night you told me to keep quiet. Michael's jaw tightened. And you listened, he said quietly. For 10 years. Kevin's voice broke. I can't carry it anymore. I see Mr. Grant's face in my dreams. I see you behind bars. I see Mom crying every night. I can't do this anymore, Mike. Michael turned away, his eyes glistening under the flickering garage light. You should have thought about that before I lost everything. You shouldn't have rubbed that store, or you should have went with empty gun. Kevin took another step forward, desperate. Then let me fix it. Please. I'll tell them the truth. I'll tell the police what happened that night. Michael looked at him for a long time. His face softened, the anger giving way to something deeper. It won't give me back 10 years, he said quietly. It won't give me back my name or the person I used to be. Kevin's tears fell freely. I know, but it's the truth. And the truth is all I have left to give. Michael stared at him. The brother he had protected, the reason for his silence, his one and only brother. He nodded slowly. Then do it, he said. Tell the truth. Kevin wiped his face, his breath shaking. Will you come with me? Michael looked down, then back up at him. No. This time, you walk in alone. Kevin swallowed hard, then turned toward the door. He hesitated, looking back once. Mike, I don't deserve your forgiveness. Michael met his eyes, steady but weary. It's not about what you deserve. It's about what's right. Kevin nodded, his face breaking as he whispered, I'm sorry, before walking out into the night. Michael watched through the garage window as his brother disappeared down the street toward the police station, the same one that had taken Michael away 10 years ago. And for the first time in a decade, he let the tears fall knowing that his brother loves him too. Unknowingly to Kelvin, his brother followed him halfway down the road, hiding behind cars, rushing home to tell their mom everything, confused and afraid if he was really going to the police station. When he realized he was focused, his heart dropped. He turned around immediately and ran home. Inside the house, their mother was sitting quietly, folding laundry. The moment she saw him rush in, her hands froze. What happened? Why do you look like that? She asked, her voice trembling. He caught his breath and said it all. Every word, every tear. How his brother was on his way to confess. How he couldn't bear living with the truth any longer. Her eyes widened in disbelief. No, he can't, she whispered. Not after everything this family has been through? No, not after all these years of trying to heal. Doesn't he know how many nights I've cried for this family? How many times I wish things could go back to before it all happened? Tell him to stop. Tell him to forget it and come back now. I've already lost enough. I can't lose another piece of my heart again. She grabbed her phone and dialed Kev's number with shaking fingers. When the call connected, her voice broke. Please don't do this, Kelvin. Don't make me live that pain again. You've seen what it's done to this family. Just please come back home, Kelvin, she pleaded softly. We've already suffered enough. Let's forget the past and start again. But on the other end, the voice that replied was calm and determined. Mom, I can't. I've lived with this lie for 10 years. It's killing me inside. He lost everything because of me. I have to make it right. Tears streamed down her face as she said, Kelvin, you're hurting me again. Can you just come back home, please? Michael took the phone gently from her, pressing it to his ear. His voice was steady, but his heart was breaking. Brother, he said quietly, come home. Please. I forgive you. I don't need you to carry this pain anymore. I just need you back. You're my only brother. There was silence for a moment. Then the sound of a soft sob came through the line. Do you say you forgive me, Michael? Do you really forgive me? Michael replied, Yes, I forgive you, bro. Just come back home for Mom's sake, please. For the sake of all of us. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm coming home. Moments later, the front door opened. He stood there, tired, broken, but free. His brother walked to him slowly, and they embraced tightly, both crying silently. "I'll never let this happen again," he said, his voice shaking. "Never again." His brother nodded, holding him close. With a little silence between them, Kevin's eyes filled with tears. "I'll never forgive myself." Michael's voice was calm. "Then spend your life helping someone else. That's how you start to make it right." Kevin nodded, his voice breaking. "I will." Their mom came closer, holding them together as she said, "You two have cried enough for the past. Now, wipe your tears and promise me you'll build a life your father would be proud of. He may be gone, but his dream still lives in both of you. Don't waste it. Turn this pain into purpose, and he will be proud of you both wherever he is." Months later, Michael and Kelvin worked together in the mechanic workshop and used part of their income to start the Turner Foundation, a program dedicated to helping wrongly accused youth rebuild their lives after prison. He never spoke much about his years behind bars, but sometimes he'd visit the old auto shop late at night, sit under the buzzing lights, and let the memories drift like ghosts through his mind. He had lost a decade, but he'd found something far greater: truth, forgiveness, and peace. And as the rain fell again over Ashwood, he looked out the window and whispered to himself, "Sometimes doing what's right costs everything, but the truth, it always rises." Sometimes forgiveness doesn't erase the past, it redeems it. It teaches us that love can survive even the deepest wounds, and that no mistake is too heavy for grace to carry. Because in the end, truth may hurt, but it's only through truth that healing begins. Enjoy more stories like this. Click and watch from our playlist where justice, mercy, and love collide. Every story inspires and stays with you.